When I first played this game, I felt like Ashley. I was terrified. But now, I'm the man.
No.
I'm the Chad of this game. The alpha.
Resident Evil 4.
Today's plan was to record, get this, a blank in 2020. Yeah, that's right. I was finally going to start the 2020 MMO journey on this channel, but seems like the game I wanted to record is in maintenance. So here we are with this video. Another video idea I've had for a couple weeks. I was actually planning to scrap this video. As you can see, today we are discussing Resident Evil, which is, to some, a spooky game. And I guess if you are to throw it in a category, not I guess, but technically it is a horror game. Look at that shit, dude. I was 10 years old seeing that. I said, what the fuck is this? And then you're like, oh my god, I got it. I did it. Fuck yes. No. What is this? So on the subject of horror games, yes, I know that Cryy plays scary games is a thing on this channel that I've been slacking on for the past couple of weeks, but Blue Protocol really came and fucked everything up. So we'll get back on track. Soon I will get back to uploading horror games on the channel. Fuck me, bro. So Resident Evil 4 is one of the most important games, if not the most important game of my childhood. It's one of my favorite games, hands down, and it's one of your favorite games according to a recent community post and video that I made, which is why I'm making this. I wanted to talk about this a few weeks ago because there's rumors that it's getting a remake, and then there's also rumors of Resident Evil 8. The remake for 4 isn't supposed to come until, I guess, 2022 or later, and then Resident Evil 8 is supposed to get here at the beginning of next year. But today we're talking about Resident Evil 4, the OG, because I just want to talk about my experience with this game as a 10-year-old. I believe I was 10. If I wasn't 10, I was 11, and I still remember this third-party or off-brand GameCube memory card that when I loaded it up years later, I had so many different cleared Resident Evil 4 files because I played that shit religiously. 4 was the first Resident Evil game that I ever played, and it wasn't because I was like, oh, well, this game looks cool, let me start. It goes deeper than that. And this is slightly embarrassing and pretty personal. I think it's my first time speaking about this openly, but when I was younger, I had really bad OCD to the point where I couldn't play certain games because of how unrealistic they were. So the more unrealistic a game was, the harder it was to comprehend the game's storyline and plot, to be able to play it without obsessing over how unrealistic it was. This sounds stupid. I'm sure this sounds so stupid. For example, if I'm playing a game that's like Mega Man Battle Network, which was a game I loved, I would have to make sense of the story first, which could take me sometimes hours after purchasing the game, or days before I could actually play it. And I remember one time like actually going through this out loud with a friend, and I remember that friend was just like, dude, shut up. He told me to shut the fuck up. So yeah, Resident Evil was one of those series I could never start as a kid, because to me, seeing zombies rise out of the grave was so unrealistic that I just couldn't play it. But I was also terrified because I remember being a child and my dad, he started Resident Evil 2 on Nintendo 64, and in the opening scene there's this image of a zombie. I'm sure many of you remember this. It scared the fuck out of me, so I never even thought twice about visiting this series. Now we fast forward, and I spoke about this in some videos, so some of you might remember. Whenever my mother would grocery shop at this store called Biggs, there was a Hollywood Video across the street, or in the same parking lot, and Hollywood Video is a movie and video game rental store. And if you grew up in this generation, a lot of you I'm sure rented games back in the day. It was an easy way to pay $5 to $10 to test a game out, see if you liked it, or maybe you would even beat it within the first day or two, so you're not spending $60. You're just renting games. Honestly, I miss this shit. Do these even exist anymore? I haven't even thought about that for a while. But inside Hollywood Video was a game store called Game Crazy. Now Game Crazy was pretty much your EB Games or your GameStop, where you can buy, sell, trade. They even had a little kiosk where you can play demos and shit like that. So my mother would drop me off and I would look around. I would browse Game Crazy, or I would just play demos. This was once every 2 weeks. But it got to the point where if I was bored and my mother was going out, I'd say, hey mom, can you drop me off at Game Crazy? and she'd drop me off and pick me up 3 hours later. And when you think about it, this little kid, this little 10-year-old, is just in the store for 3+ hours. I don't know if the staff would be annoyed or think I was stealing or just be like, what the fuck? We're not a daycare, dude. In my mind, it was heaven for a child. They never gave me issues. They never gave me a problem. In fact, I ended up like becoming friends with the staff. So one day, she drops me off and I see one of the staff fighting the El Gigante, which is a giant boss in Resident Evil 4. And yes, there's going to be some spoilers in this video, but he was fighting El Gigante and I remember the back splitting open and this parasite showing itself. Oh, skip the cutscene by accident, guys, but this is the El Gigante. This is the introduction of the new monster. I'm going to shoot his kneecaps out, and then the parasite's going to pop out of his back. Now this is its weak point. Actually, that mine gun may have been a nice, oh fuck it, I'll climb his back. It may have been a nice thing to have for this. Slice him up, baby. And it was that moment that I was like, what is this game? And he's like, it's Resident Evil 4. It just came out today. And I was like, this is Resident Evil? But that's a bug. And he's like, yeah, this one's about parasites. And it was that moment that my brain was able to comprehend the story of Resident Evil. Because for the first time, in my mind, it wasn't just stupid magical zombies rising from the grave. It was a parasite. It made so much more sense. My brain didn't have to OCD about this story. And so I begged my mother, will you please buy me this game? And she did. And my mom buying me a game back then, buying me a game was like a holiday. This came once every 3 years, unless it was Christmas. I never really like asked for games. Instead, I would hustle, sell Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or as I got older, sell my mixtapes at school. Do whatever I could to make money and buy shit for myself before I had a job. So my mother buying me this game, it was not only important because it was one of the few times that she got me a full-priced game for I think $40 at the time, but it was also the most mature game that I've ever played at that age. And again, it was one of the first times that, you know, my OCD wasn't holding me back from playing a game. So I get home, I load it up, and you know, the game was kind of terrifying, but it never really stopped me from pushing through. Eventually though, once you hit the sewer, there's a sewer in the castle. And once you get to that point and you're hearing the splashes of footsteps behind you, that I entered this and I will never forget. Hearing that shit for the first time, bro, we're talking about the feeling of your heart dropping through your ass as a 10-year-old. And then, you know, the footsteps, you're like, what was that? And that low-key scarred me. And that's when I was like, okay, this game is fucking terrifying. This game is scary. And then, oh, the worst part was when you get to the island and you're in the labs and these regenerating creatures, bro. You look on the table in there. What Z-fuck is that? You look in here. What the fuck is going on? We're checking over here. Look at this man. Oh, why are you bloody? What's the key card? The freezer key. Card key. What's in the freezer? What the fuck was that? 11 years old. Hear me out. What the fuck? You hear that breathing? Now check this shit out. Leg off. Alright, that motherfucker's dead. What the? I think till this day, that might be the most terrifying monster in any game that I've ever played. Alright, now you're locked in a freezer with these things. It gets worse. Just everything about it is terrifying, man. For this game's time, this shit was horrific. I've been training all my life for this. Fuck. Shit. But then of course it gets to a point where I mastered this game as a kid, beating it once a week. And now it's time for my daily dose of CSGO. Fuck! And this lasted over the years. Resident Evil 4 was one of the coolest, most badass games in my memory. And so, yeah, I played the remastered version. I'm happy that it's getting a remake. This is one I would like to see. I'm not so blinded by nostalgia that I don't want to see a remake. This is one that many people probably have never touched, and this, in my opinion, is the best Resident Evil. It set a new standard for gaming for me. I believe it was the first over-the-shoulder third-person game ever created. Dead Space and other games probably wouldn't exist without 4. It could use some quality of life changes, which is why I'm excited for a remake. Resident Evil 4, when it comes to monster and boss design, it was A1.
Ashley. What is that?
This is it. Looking like something from Dead Space. I remember one time I was at my father's job. I was in the 6th grade, and I was looking for pictures of Salazar. I think that's his name, the dwarf.
This is no ritual. It's terrorism.
Isn't that a popular word these days? Not to worry. We've prepared a special ritual for you.
And I remember on my dad's work computer, he spelled it wrong and porn came up. And I remember he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I was just dying inside. I felt bad, like I was gonna get him in trouble. And then you get introduced to Ada Wong, you know, my first game waifu.
Bit of advice, try using knives next time. Works better for close encounters.
Oh my, yo, this
Long
scene,
time no see.
this scene hit you boy as a
Ada.
kid, okay? I
So
said,
it is true.
Who the fuck is that?
True?
Google images,
About
Ada
what?
Wong. God damn. But yeah, excited for a remake, definitely excited for Resident Evil 8. Because 7 is probably my second favorite Resident Evil game. It was so refreshing to get that first person experience, and I didn't think Resident Evil could even scare me at this point because of 6 and just the spin-offs. They were okay, but none of them really like got me, you know, like shook me. 7 was the kind of fear that I expected from an indie horror game. So yeah, this was a great game. This was a good game, and I'm glad that I played it at such a young age because I think this helped further develop my love for horror games and push the kind of gore and creepy bosses that I crave in horror games. And then also, as mentioned, it was one of the few games that I could play without my thought process just preventing me from enjoying it. And I think going forward, things just got better. I'm not like that anymore. Sure, you know, I obsess over some things that fuck me up from time to time, but it's nowhere near doesn't hold me back the same way it did when I was younger. You know, that being said, guys, do you have any stories or memories with Resident Evil 4? Have you never played it before? Are you a fan of horror games? Stop right now. Go buy Resident Evil 4. I will catch you all in the next video. See you soon, friends.